Welcome to another episode in the Little Writing Detail series. In this episode, I'm going to be explaining to you how you as a writer or the students of the English language can correctly put together a complex sentence, how you can graphically represent, how you can graphically weave together or construct a complex sentence. So firstly, what is a complex sentence? A complex sentence is any form of expression that comprises a dependent clause and an independent clause. Simply put, when you have an incomplete sentence that is joined to an independent clause or to a complete sentence, when you have these two being put together in a single breath pause, then you have what is called a complex sentence. Firstly, you should have two things: a dependent clause or an incomplete sentence that is joined with or joined to an independent clause or to a complete sentence. Incomplete sentence together with a complete sentence, you have what is called a complex sentence. Now, it's actually very important that you pay close attention to this lesson. The reason is I've had to assess a number of write-ups recently, and I noticed that a lot of users of the English language are deficient in this aspect of creative writing. So when you have to combine a dependent clause with an independent clause, how do you graphically do that? That is exactly what we want to do. So to begin with, let us talk about what is called subordinating conjunction. Now, these are a few examples of subordinating conjunctions: if, while, when, because, although, even though, etc. These are some of the examples, or just a few examples of subordinating conjunctions. Subordinating conjunctions. Now, conjunctions. When you have any of these words or conjunctions beginning a sentence, that sentence will always end up being a dependent clause. Whatever sentence that you begin with any of these conjunctions will always be an incomplete sentence. Complete sentence. And you know that as a creative writer, it's not ideal that you write an incomplete sentence in your piece of writing. Of course, it's allowed in some situations, but fundamentally in writing, you aren't expected to write an incomplete sentence. I definitely understand the importance or the place of sentence fragments, but basically as a writer, you should know when to separate a sentence fragment from when you should write a complete or whole thought. Remember that I said when you start a sentence or any form of expression with any of these subordinating conjunctions, that expression will always be a dependent clause, an incomplete sentence. So when you have to use any of this to start a sentence, right? Now, when you have to start any expression with any of these subordinate conjunctions, the overall result, the overall sentence should be a complex sentence. Let me give you an example of what I mean. While the event was going on, the man came in. Now, this is a complex sentence, but there's a problem here. There's a problem in the graphic representation of this expression. Something is missing. It is a comma. Yeah, it is a comma. Now, let's try to identify what the dependent clause is. Well, remember, this is a subordinate conjunction, and I did say that when you begin an expression with a subordinate conjunction, say, for example, if this is if, while, when, because, as a result, although, even though, all of those, when you begin a sentence with any of those, just like we have here, the first part of this expression will always be a dependent clause. Dependent, incomplete, without a complete thought. Now, at the end of the incomplete thought, you should have a comma. While the event was going on, this, comma. The man came in. The man came in is a complete thought, is a complete sentence. It is the independent clause. Now, For a complex sentence like this, graphically, you should have a comma separating you should have a comma separating the dependent clause from the independent clause. It's only when you have this comma that you have a correctly written complex sentence. So many students often omit the presence of the comma in this case. So please, when you write a complex sentence, a sentence beginning with a subordinate conjunction in the future or in your piece of writing, remember after the dependent clause, after the incomplete sentence, you should have a comma. While the event was going on, comma, the man came in. If you take this out, if you take the comma out, your sentence becomes flawed. Your sentence becomes flawed. This graphically is wrong, is a wrong expression in the English language. So let's have another example. Now look at this without the subordinate conjunction. That said, comma, I won't be attending the event. I won't be attending the event. That said, this is incomplete. That said, given this, as a result of what? I don't know. As a result, comma, that said, comma, I won't be attending the event. So, as a writer or as a student of the English language, when you have an incomplete sentence being joined to a complete sentence, make sure that you put a comma between the dependent sentence and the independent sentence. So that is actually what this class is about. Without the comma, your construction becomes graphically wrong. And if that is the case, you're going to be losing a lot of marks. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you've learned how to appropriately construct or weave a complex sentence using the comma to separate the dependent clause from the independent clause. See you next time, but remember to keep speaking right and keep learning right.